Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Sharpening the Edge, Week 5. There he is, Lucas Reimink. He's on the screen or on your podcast. I'm Dennis Fithian, and we're ready to make some picks here. Lucas, how you doing?
Doing well. I went 4-2 last week, so that brings me to 12-11 on the season now. Finally crossed that 500 threshold. And I like the board again. I like the way the board looks again this week. So, I'm excited. Hopefully get another positive week, keep building on momentum I gained last week.
That's what I like to hear. I also had a good week, 3-0 in my locks of the week, and I've moved up to 12-16 overall. Not so hot picking the Michigan State, and the Lions, which we do every week, and that's how we are going to start. We will go to the Michigan game, the battle for the little brown jug. How do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, I'm going to take the Wolverines here again. I was on them last week. Thought they were just a little bit undervalued in the overall marketplace. Minnesota, just kind of looking at them, they played a pretty similar football team in Iowa last week, which is kind of unfortunate to say that Michigan is kind of like Iowa now, but that's kind of just what they are. They like to run the ball, play good defense, and there's just not too much of a passing attack, not too much of a passing threat. But the good news is Caleb Johnson ran all over them last week. He had 200 yards, 3 touchdowns on 21 carries. Minnesota's offensive line has really struggled this season, and Michigan's defensive line is probably the best in the country. So just kind of when I've gone back and forth in this game, I kind of thought about the under here as my play, but it's like 36.5. So I just that's just too low for me to take. So I do like the Wolverines side a little bit more. So I'll take that. I'll take them to cover that 10.5 here.
I am in lockstep with you, although I think it's going to be a big number. I like Michigan covering 10.5. I like the Wolverines 42-17 over the Gophers, so I'll gladly lay the points for the little brown jug. Let's go up to East Lansing. Ohio State is coming in, and they're a big 23.5 point favorite. That's not going to scare me. I'm going to take the Buckeyes 45-13, so I'll lay the 23.5.
Yeah, I'm with you on this one as well, which is surprising. We were totally fighting on everything last week, but we're all in agreement this week. I was watching a lot of the Ohio State Marshall game last week. I didn't think in the first half, at least, they didn't play well early on offense or defense. Second half was a lot more of what I expected to get from them in that game. And just kind of how the season's gone, they haven't really needed to show anything. And I think there's levels to this offense State that I still think they have yet to put out there. I think this Buckeyes team is going to be really, really good. Michigan State, on the other hand, they're improving. I talked about it a little bit last week. I think they're improving under Jonathan Smith's leadership. But Childs, he just turns it over way too much for me to be comfortable with. Playing against a really good Ohio State defense here, I think he coughs it up at least a time or two. I think this game is going to go sideways for the Spartans. I had it at 38-10, so I'm right there with you. I think the Buckeyes can cover that 23.5.
Childs is pretty incredible to watch. I'd be excited if I was an MSU fan. I don't know if he's going to put it together this year to get those wins, but in the future, I'd be happy if he was the signal caller for MSU, if I was a Spartan fan, because he does bring some excitement to the table. All right, well, let's see. You have the Lions on Monday Night Football. Dan Campbell has not beaten the Seahawks. 0-3. This one is at Ford Field. It is the Lions by 3.5. Let's go right back to you for the selection.
Yeah, so the 3.5 to me is literally exactly what one of my favorite models had it at. So I'm not going to touch that part of it, but I do like the over 46.5 here. So that's what I'm going to go with. I just think both teams are good. Mike McDonald has a Seahawks defense playing a lot better than they were a year ago. I think the Lions defense has improved as well. We saw them, in my opinion, they took a bit of a step forward last week out in Arizona. I just think with Geno Smith in that wide receiver room, he's got DK, JSN, Smith and Jigba from Ohio State, and then Tyler Lockett is kind of the third guy there. I think there's 3 decent to good wide receivers there that I don't think Detroit's going to be able to cover all 3 of them. I've been talking about it pretty much all season. I still think Detroit's secondary is the most vulnerable part of that team. So I think if you can get Detroit, it's through the passing attack. So I think just kind of looking at Seattle and what they have, I think it's not necessarily a bad matchup. I just think it's a matchup to me that seems like it's going to put up some points. And I also think the Lions can score as well, particularly if they stay true to the run game and then kind of let Goff play, go off play action after that. I have this at Lions winning 27-24, which is all I really need to be able to get to that over 46.5 here. That's kind of what I think this game's going to be.
Well, you can see I've got my score up on the board. It's not a model, but it is a pick, and we're pretty close. I just bumped it up a little bit. I think I don't like 3.5 is tough, when you look at it. But if I have to go one way or the other, and I do, I am going to pick Detroit. I hate Frank Ragnow being out, and hopefully he is able to come back sooner than later. The Lions' best thing that they have going for them is that offensive line in front of Jared Goff, and you got your centerpiece right up there in Ragnow. That's not a good sign. But with all that being said, I still think the Lions give Dan Campbell his first W. If you could bet for the Lions to fake a couple punts or fake a punt and go for it more than twice on fourth down, I would lay money on that. But I'll just have the Lions winning 30-24. That gets us to our best bets of the week, 3 locks each of us, and I'm feeling really good. Not only did I go 3-0 last week, but I went 2-1 the week before. So I'm pretty hot. If I put together another positive week, I will then say I am officially hot, and I'm going to lead things off. And it's a game that's going on right now. There's no score in the first quarter, but even with the live betting, it's still Rutgers by 1.5 points. They're at home. This is a short week. Washington is had to fly in to New York. I mean, this is for a conference game going from Seattle to New York in a short week. I think that's going to affect it. But what really is going to affect it is Rutgers not only has an outstanding running back in Monangai, but they also have Samuel Brown V, who ran well against Va Tech last week. And that's not quite the same kind of travel for Rutgers, and they're at home. I like Rutgers to win this game, so I am laying the 1.5 and taking the Scarlet Knights. Live bet that one if you're watching this one live for the Scarlet Knights to win this one.
For my first one, I'm going to go to the Big 12. Haven't bet a lot of Big 12 games this year just because I think the teams are so similarly modeled and rated that it's just really hard to get an edge. But I found one this week that I really do like quite a bit. So I'm going to take Kansas State -5.5 against Oklahoma State. Watched Oklahoma State a decent amount this year, and I just not like what I've seen on that offense. Their defense, likewise, also has a ton of holes in it. Arkansas put up 600 yards of total offense against them a couple weeks ago. This Kansas State team is well coached. I think they're going to pound the rock and rely on that defense to get as many stops as possible. The spread's only 5.5 here, and I think this game has a chance to be a blowout in favor of Kansas State. Just don't see Oklahoma State being able to sustain drives. They really haven't been able to run the ball successfully all year. Alan Bowman got benched last week. He hasn't really found the same footing he had last year, at certain points. Just not a lot of confidence right now in that Oklahoma State offense going up what I think is a good Kansas State defense. I know they had a rough week last week, but I still like them. I like them to bounce back. I think they're a good team and one of the better teams in the Big 12. So I got them covering that 5.5 there.
Good pick, Kansas State over Oklahoma State by more than 5.5. I'll give you my best bet, number 2. And for this one, I'm coming and staying in the Big Ten. I liked Illinois last week. I thought they were getting too many points against Nebraska. They ended up winning the game outright. I kept looking at this one and thinking 19.5. That's way too many points in this one. Penn State, sure, they're going to win the game. They're at home, but 19.5, I'm jumping all over this one and taking the Fighting Illini. Illinois got a pretty good offense, and they got a pretty good defense. And so that's a nice combination for me. I know Penn State's a tough place to play and everything else, but give me the Fighting Illini, and I'll take that 19.5 for pick number 2.
That was my exact same pick number 2. I'm with the Illini as well. I just think the spread is too high. I just think it should be under 2 touchdowns here. I think even with Illinois going to Happy Valley, Luke Altmaier has played really well so far for Illinois. He went on the road last week on a tough environment at Nebraska. I thought he looked pretty good. Still not fully sold in this Penn State team yet. They just lost a starting safety for the season this past week as well. I think Illinois is going to hang tough in this one longer than you might think before Penn State pulls away at the end. I had this at 27-13, so I'll gladly take that plus 19.5 there.
Makes me feel better with you making that selection. So I'm going to let you pick. So we'll see if I jump on your third lock of the week. Go ahead.
I got the biggest game of the weekend here for my third one. I'm going to take the Crimson Tide plus 1.5 at home. Taking the home dog here. I think both of these teams are in the elite tier of college football, both power rated in the top 4, along with Texas and Ohio State, in my opinion. Georgia's offense to me just hasn't looked as good as I expected it to so far this season. Carson Beck, in my opinion, he kind of misses having the guys, Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey, to throw the football to. The new wide receiver and tight end group is still pretty good, but I just think it's a little bit down from what it was a season ago. Their defense, particularly the front seven, has been pretty banged up for a bunch of the year. It's kind of unclear if or how many of those guys are going to get back for this game. So I don't really like that uncertainty either. Alabama on offense, really explosive. Jalen Milroe still there. True freshman Ryan Williams is one of the best wide receivers in the country, possibly already. He's been a stud so far for them. I expect Georgia to give Ryan Williams a lot of attention, even though he is a true freshman, just because I think he's the most explosive player on that offense. But then Alabama's still got Giovanni Bernard and Kendrick Law to throw the football to. So I just like the well-roundedness of that wide receiver group there for Alabama, and I think their offensive line is one of the best in the country. I think they'll be able to run the ball and sustain the football with the ground game if they need to as well. The weakness for Alabama is kind of the secondary. They've got a bunch of transfers and a true freshman starting back there for them, including Keon Sabb, who's looked pretty good back there, but he's still
I've heard of
not a ton of continuity with that defense and a bunch of true freshmen, particularly on the back end there. So I think there's explosive plays to be had against that secondary, but I just talked about it like a little bit ago, how I'm not super confident in Georgia's skill group being able to take advantage of that, at least at this point in the season. If they were to play later on, maybe the SEC championship or in the playoffs, that could be different at that point in the season. But just what I've seen so far, I just don't have the confidence that Georgia will be able to put up the plays against Alabama's secondary like you might need to be able to get the win. So I have the Crimson Tide winning this game outright. I think they get it done here at home. I had it 27-24, and what I think will be a really, really close but a really great game, and Alabama's going to win.
I was ready to go for the Tide as well, but I thought back a little bit better than Milroe, but Milroe being at home, I like that. And what I didn't like about Georgia is they weren't able to bury Kentucky a couple of weeks ago. In fact, survived, just won that game by a point. So I was with you, but in the end, I went a different direction, and I will give you that pick right now. I'm going to Bloomington, where Maryland is coming into the rolling hills of Bloomington and playing Indiana. Both of these teams can score. The Hoosiers, they're going crazy when it comes to offense. And I saw that the Curtis Rourke, 76% completion percentage for IU, and Billy Edwards is in a groove. He had a great completion percentage last week. Two really good quarterbacks here. MSU scored 27 points on Maryland, and Villanova scored 20 on the Terps. I don't know. Indiana might be able to cover this over by themselves with his Maryland defense. So I'm jumping on this one. I think I would have taken it at 60, like I said. So I like the Maryland-Indiana game over 52.5. So here are our three picks. Oh, those are my three from last week. I like the over that I just gave you. I'm also taking Rutgers. That's a live line right now, -1.5. And then Illinois. And you have it at plus 17.5. That line's come down a little bit. It was 19.5 when I was looking at it. And then there's Lucas's other two plays on the screen. He likes Alabama getting the points at home, and Kansas State in Manhattan laying 5.5 against Oklahoma State. Great job, Lucas. Anything else to add?
Yeah, we agreed on the first few picks. I don't know if that's nervous or if that's a good sign that we're seeing the board well together. But look forward to seeing what the outcome is, and hopefully we got a bunch of winners we can talk about next week.
I'm right with you on that. Enjoy your night and enjoy the weekend. It's always great making picks with you. Good luck. There he is, Lucas Reimink.